Alright guys, welcome to my studio for today. Just not far outside Brussels in Belgium, and I thought I'd walk through my bikepacking setup as it currently stands. I'll do a much shorter version where I go through each piece relatively quickly, and then I'll also do a much longer version where I go through in terms of things I liked and didn't like about the bags and tips and tricks I've come across along the way. In summary, it's a 4-season setup. So I can go to about negative 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, which is approximately negative 4 to negative 13 degrees Fahrenheit. In terms of water capacity, I've got water bottles and a bladder system, which gives me about 9 litres of water, which is approximately 2.2 gallons, I believe. And then also we have the food bags at the front, which is 10 litres, which is approximately 2.6 gallons of food. Alright guys, now if we do the long version of the bag review, start from the back, work my way to the front. So to complete the system, if you look down here, we've got my 2 bottle cages. These are custom resin bottle cages, and then just with the adapters to allow them to angle back, and the reason for that is just so it doesn't interfere with the brake here. I did find the bottle cages would jump out, especially when they were full of water. So to combat that, I just cut up some inner tubes, and then as you can see, it just goes straight over the top of the bottle. And to date, I haven't had any problems with these. All right, if we move up a little bit, we've got the Revelate holster with the Revelate Terrapin dry bag. Really nice, solid dry bag. Packs really well. Obviously, you've got this little valve here, which allows you to compress the air out of it. One thing I would note is it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to fill the very bottom of the dry bag. So usually I stuff some clothes down there because it's kind of this slightly smaller, odd shape. Also, too, actually, one thing I should mention is I'm a big fan of Velcro daisy chains. Here's a great example of a daisy chain, and then straps as well too. I much prefer things to bounce around and move rather than be rigid, because I feel when they're rigid they can break. Also, the great thing too about Velcro, I mean, like, here's a little Velcro tip. For your frame bag, just cover it in Velcro. This is a lot more Velcro than you'd need for a frame bag, but it means you've got additional Velcro, right? If you want to experiment with attaching it to another bag, or some Velcro breaks, or you lose it, you can just pull it off the frame bag. But anyway, yeah, so straps, Velcro, daisy chains. The reason I mention that here is because to support my Terrapin, I've got a strap that stops it from moving around too much, because there's quite a lot of weight in this, as well as the sleeping bag on top. And then also I have another strap here, which stops my sleeping bag from moving too far back. And then this cargo net, when it's actually properly attached, then stops this sleeping bag from moving too much side to side. Just quickly, this is my Feather Friends Ibis 0 degrees Fahrenheit sleeping bag, which is about negative 18 degrees Celsius, and then it's just sitting in a Cedar Summit dry bag, which helps to keep it really nice and compressed and dry. When I want to get out of the saddle, then I can just loosen the strap that supports it, and this dry bag angles a bit further down, and then it's a lot easier to get out of the saddle. Another quick one as well too, just holding my spare tube. So I'm running tubeless with these right now. Obviously you need backups though, so I keep one of my tubes here, really nice, rock solid, using duct tape, Gorilla Tape, with just a little rubbish bag to hold it, and then the other one sits below the bottom bracket. Alright, so if we move to the middle of the bike, the top tube, let's start there. We've got a Rogue Panda, I believe it's Elemento, top tube bag. This is a really nice solid bag. I like how the sides are really rigid, and that means that it won't bulge out a whole lot, and so it won't interfere with your legs as you're cycling. Really, really nice too, strong zip. Also too, myself being a big fan of daisy chains all over this thing. Same thing with this bag actually. This is the J-Pack snack pack. I chose this one primarily because it's got a large capacity, so often I'll have a big power bank and my phone sitting in here, plus other things, as well too as J-Packs has got a great reputation online. Also as well too, I find handy, I'm running one of the Sun Dynamos with a sine wave revolution USB charger, and it's really handy. I can just plug in the USB there and then put the cord through here and then zip it up nice and tight, and I'm not going to worry about water getting in and damaging my phone or anything like that. Alright, so now if we want to look at the big babies of this setup, I bought a Elpkit frame bag. Elpkit's based in the UK. And for this bag, I opted for the document zip, which I find really handy because it gives you quick access to I mean, I guess it's a bit cliche, documents, like your passport, currency, debit cards, credit cards, all those kind of things. If we have a look at the other side, I went for the surgeon zip. It's really large, the opening's really big. Let's see if I can get this thing open. To be honest though, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't go for this in future, just because with so many things packed in, especially heavier items like my tent poles, that it can really start to weigh down on the bag, and it bulges at the bottom, and at times it can clip the crank arm as it's moving around, so then I have to get off the bike and rearrange the bag and be a bit of a pain. So probably in future I wouldn't go for the surgeon zip, and I'd go for the divider system, so all the heavy things could sit up here and not cause any issues further down. All right, while we're here, we can have a look at the Honecker bag. To be honest, I don't use this bag a whole lot, just because it holds my, if you can see, my MSR fuel bottle, and since I don't cook any food, obviously I don't carry any fuel then. The only time I use that is when winter rolls around and I obviously need some fuel and some heat to melt the snow to get water. This is probably a good thing to note as well too. I was talking before about the Velcro and the daisy chains. This bag doesn't have a daisy chain, so you can see here it's stitched. Now the challenge I find with that is that you're limited to where the straps are located. So in this case it worked out all right. These straps aren't too bad and I was able to make use of it. I did have though one or two other bags. One was actually a top tube bag where the straps were stitched so you couldn't move them, and I couldn't quite get the right setup for my bike, and so in the end I couldn't use that bag. So if you're ever hunting for a new bag, make sure it's got plenty of daisy chains like this one. This one's got heaps of daisy chains, so you can muck around with how it sits on your bike. All right, so below the Honecker bag, one thing I should mention as well too is obviously tire clearance. Tire clearance here is quite good, and I like it as well just because often you can't make use of this area of the bike, and it's handy just to carry this fuel bottle and never feel like it impedes me trying to pack anything else. And then below that we've got three Salsa anything cages. So we've got 1, 2, and 3, and then within those we've got the J-Packs many-thing bag, I believe it's called. So these have 5 liters of capacity, and these bags are specifically designed for the Salsa anything cage. For example, the daisy chain that sits here, so you can wrap the straps right through it and pull them nice and tight so it won't move around at all. This bag carries a lot of my winter gear, so this doesn't move around, doesn't get a whole lot of use as well. And then obviously the one thing I keep in mind is the tire clearance, although I've never had an issue with that. So to date it's been pretty good. One thing I would mention though is I sometimes did find a little bit of water leaking into the bag when it was raining really heavily. So I went a little bit crazy with seam seal and then just sealed all the stitching, and now these things are airtight, so I don't have that problem anymore. All right, and now if we jump up to the main section of the bike, this is, I like to think, is the more bulky section rather than the heavy section. I try and carry quite a bit of winter gear here because it's quite bulky but not heavy, and then the heavier items either sit in the frame bag or the seat bag. So if we start on top, we've got the aero bar system, and then below that we've got the Manita insulated bag. I really like these bags. These bags have heaps of capacity. If I had to show you guys real quick, a Nalgene bottle, 1.4 liters or 48 ounces, and that just sits in these. The bag is insulated on the sides as well as the top and the bottom, so it helps stop your water freezing in the winter. And also too, it's got daisy chains as well, which is great, so you can muck around. One thing I would mention is the little nylon rope that came with this bag was really small, and it was impossible to grab with your winter gloves, so I just swapped out the smaller nylon rope for a much bigger one, so then it's much easier with your big winter gloves to grab these things and zip them shut. I do sometimes find it a little bit challenging actually to zip this thing shut because it seems to sit quite low, so it can be a little bit challenging. So when it's not winter, I don't really zip these things shut unless it's raining. I kind of just let them sit open like that. And then with my current strap setup, you could say, although I'm experimenting with it right now, so everything moves around quite a lot, these just sit nice and tight under my aero bar system so they don't move around at all. All right, and if we jump to its little brother, I bought some bulbs. This is just a week or two ago, and this is more just for quick, easy access to, it's my GoPro or my memory cards, batteries, my phone, little food bags. These are really handy. I've got one on each side. And then also, like I mentioned before, loads of daisy chains. I've been experimenting with Velcroing For some reason, there's only red Velcro in Belgium. It must be a thing. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so experimenting with Velcro, just trying to get this thing to sit nice and tight, and that way it'll sit there, easy access, but not interfere with my ability to hold my grips or use my shifters or my brake. Really, really nice, solid bag. All right, then, if we jump to the front, we've got my laptop bag. This is an AquaQuest 13-inch laptop bag. And then below that, it's just going to be difficult to see. This is usually the best spot. I've got the Revelate. I'm using the Revelate holster system. So previously I had the Sweet Roll when I was going around Central America. Really, really nice, solid setup. It's the same bag as this, just with the harness adapter, you could say. I opted for the Revelate harness though with additional straps, is because I wanted to carry more capacity. So instead of just carrying this bag, I also wanted to carry my tent, which is a Hilberg Namage 4-season tent, hence the harness came in handy. Now, one thing I would mention about this harness, let me just take this laptop off, is it's got 3 straps. So it's got 1, 2, and then 3. Now, while this is really good that holds the bike nice and steady in the middle, I find it could move around quite a bit on the sides, and that's why I mentioned these additional straps before. So I'm actually running 2 big straps, one here and then one there, and I find this helps to fix the ends of the bags to the handlebars, so it's a lot more solid as I'm moving it around. Then if we move to the very front, almost last but not least, I've got the Revelate Pockets bag. This is a nice, small, easy access bag. To be honest, I don't use it quite like that, just because with my laptop bag sitting on top, it can be really difficult to access these zips. But that being said, I just leave my my deep winter gear in there. And one thing I'd actually say is there's actually a Nalgene bottle in here right now, one of these babies. And what I do is when I don't need to carry so much water, like in regions like this of the world where water's reasonably easily available, then I pack it really tight with winter gear, and then it just sits there, and it means that it reduces the bulk of a lot of your winter gear, because often your winter gear can be heavy. It's usually especially really bulky. So little tricks like these I find helps to reduce that bulk. One thing I would mention as well too on this Pockets bag, I did have the issue, probably because I carry so much on the front, this thing could move down and fall and start catching on the tire. So one way I combated that was to attach a strap to one of the loops. And so I find now that when it wants to jump down, the tension's still held on the straps that were designed for it, but when it wants to jump down, the tension on this strap stops it from moving and then grabbing the tire. And then grab this water bottle. Last but not least, we've got the other 2 J-Packs Many Things bags with the Salsa Anything cages. Usually this is carrying my food. So what did I mention? Was it 10 liters of food capacity, which is a lot. So in regions like this of the world, maybe one will be half empty, or one might even be completely empty, or I fill it with something else. One thing I would mention as well too is usually often you're lying your bike down, right? And you want to avoid impacting anything like your derailleur. So you lie your bike down on this side, obviously making sure that you don't bend, your disc brake or anything like that with any like rocks or bits of wood or anything like that. But I did find though that it would put a lot of pressure on this cage, and actually snapped the little bolts that sit in there. So a helpful little tip I find is just to use zip ties. And zip ties are great because they can move around with the bike, and if they break, it really doesn't matter because you can just replace them. So I'm usually rocking around in my document bag actually, maybe with like 20 zip ties, because I use them to fix all kinds of things on the go. And then when I get to a more stable place, then I can do a more long-term fix. If it even needs that, like this with the zip ties, it can just stay like that. All right guys, well that concludes my long version of my bike bags, at least to date, right? Obviously I'm continually making updates, and then in 6 months or a year's time I'll do another bike bag update and give you any updates on what's changed between then and now.